Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On World DNA today, a spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has said that Israel is moving ahead with its plans for a ground operation on Rafah, where almost 2.5 million Palestinians are sheltering. Meanwhile, Israeli military said that it had hit 40 targets in South Lebanon. The question being, where exactly is the war headed to? We'll, of course, be tracking that on World DNA today.
Also on the show, we take a look at the tensions which are high and tensions across major universities in the US. Columbia University students heckled House Speaker Mike Johnson as he visited the flashpoint of nationwide student demonstrations over the Israeli war in Gaza. We are going to be looking at that as well and a lot else right here on World DNA. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Ukraine for the first time begins using long-range ballistic missiles provided secretly by the United States. Bombs a Russian military airfield in Crimea.
Russia's Children's Rights Commissioner announces a deal with Ukraine to exchange almost 50 children displaced by Moscow's invasion. Ukrainian official later declines to confirm the agreement.
Israel's military is poised to evacuate Palestinian civilians from Rafah and assault Hamas holdouts, claim IDF officials, despite international warnings of a humanitarian catastrophe.
Israeli forces are carrying out offensive action across southern Lebanon, says Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Israeli army claims striking 40 Hezbollah targets.
Tense demonstrations over Israel-Hamas war rock U.S. university campuses. U.S. House Speaker heckled calls on Columbia president to resign. Police and students clash at University of Texas at Austin.
India's Supreme Court says it would be quote-unquote dangerous to say individuals' private property cannot be regarded as material resources of community and taken over by state authorities to subserve common good.
Spain's socialist prime minister cancels his public duties for the rest of the week, says he is mulling resigning after the court launched a probe into his wife for alleged influence peddling and corruption.
Now, the Israeli military is preparing to send its troops into Rafah, the only corner of the strip where most of Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinians are taking refuge.
Right. A senior Israeli defense official said that the military is poised to evacuate the Palestinians and are ready to carry out the invasion at Hamas holdouts in the southern part of the territory.
An Israeli government spokesperson said it was moving ahead with a ground operation, but no timeline was given for the same. According to the officials, IDF has bought some 40,000 tents, each capable of accommodating 10 to 12 people each, to house Palestinians relocated from Rafah in advance of the assault.
And now all that remains is orders from the Israeli Prime Minister, which will decide the fate of the residents who are already displaced from their homes. And they are weighing options of fleeing again and securing a place to live.
Israeli warplanes pounded the northern Gaza region in one of the fiercest attacks after weeks of relative calm. The city of Beit Lahiya came under massive shelling for a second day on Wednesday. And this comes a day after the Israeli military ordered residents of 4 districts as dangerous combat zones.
And on Wednesday, Hamas released a video of a 23-year-old Israeli-American hostage, Harish Goldenberg Polin. He was abducted from the Nova Music Festival in southern Israel during Hamas's October attack. Now, the undated video showed Harish missing a lower arm. But otherwise, apparently healthy, he was shown saying he had sustained serious injuries during the October 7th attack after he tried using his body as a shield to protect himself and other civilians.
Shalom.
I was arrested on October 7th at the Nova concert in Raim. I went out seeking entertainment with my friends. Instead, I found myself struggling to survive with serious injuries all over the body. Nevertheless, I took it upon myself to protect myself and the people who were afraid around me because there was no one to protect us. Netanyahu and his government, you should be ashamed because you neglected us along with thousands of other citizens.
The parents of Goldberg Polin made a plea to negotiating parties and told their son to stay strong.
Seeing a video of Hirsch today is overwhelming. We're relieved to see him alive, but we are also concerned about his health and well-being, as well as that of all of the other hostages and all of those suffering in this region. And we're here today with a plea to all of the leaders of the parties who have been negotiating to date.
And Hirsch, if you can hear this, we heard your voice today for the first time in 201 days. And if you can hear us, I am telling you, we are telling you, we love you, stay strong, survive.
Well, tensions are also heating up on the Israel-Lebanon border. Israeli forces on Wednesday carried out offensive action in Lebanon after launching cross-border strikes targeting Hamas ally Hezbollah. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said, and I'm quoting here, many forces are deployed on the border and IDF forces are carrying out offensive action currently throughout southern Lebanon.
The strikes came after the Iran-backed Hezbollah movement said it fired a fresh barrage of rockets across the border on Wednesday following a strike that killed 2 civilians, which the group blamed on Israel. Cross-border exchanges of fire have flared between the Israeli army and Hezbollah since Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel, which triggered the war in Gaza.
Meanwhile, tensions are high across major universities in the U.S. amid continued anti-war outbursts.
Now, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson was met with boos after he visited the Columbia University on Wednesday. This comes as the Biden administration continues to face heat over its policies related to the Israel-Hamas war.
Well, during the speech, Johnson demanded the university president's resignation, pinning the blame on her for mishandling the anti-Israel demonstrations in the campus. He also alleged that the university president did not do enough to make Jewish students feel safe.
It is time for President Shafiq to resign in disgrace. She has lost control of this campus. She has lost control of this institution. And after listening to her comments inside, it is clear that she has no intention of getting this university under control and ensuring the safety and well-being of every student.
Johnson's visit marks the first campus visit of a top representative amid the protests. The university pushed a deadline on encampment negotiations on Friday. Just when the speaker took to the stage, students started chanting pro-Palestinian slogans, including Free Palestine and Stop the Genocide. The House Speaker warned of intervention by the National Guard if the protesters were not dispersed.
My intention is to call President Biden after we leave here and share with him what we have seen with our own 2 eyes and demand that he take action. There is executive authority that be appropriate. If this is not contained quickly and if these threats and intimidation are not stopped, there is an appropriate time for the National Guard. We have to bring order to these campuses. We cannot allow this to happen around the country. We are better than this.
At the Texas University, pro-Palestinian demonstrators clashed with police. As per an eyewitness video, U.S. troopers in riot suits were seen involved in a scuffle. Several arrests were also made. However, the authorities have not revealed any official figures yet.
From the beginning, we wanted a peaceful protest. We wanted something that was just like a community gathering that was meant to show our frustration with the university, but unfortunately did not turn out that way.
Republicans have made it clear that they will follow through with punishing colleges and universities if the protests were not controlled. Mike Johnson's crucial visit also comes at a time when the House rolled out a $17 billion aid package to Israel, including $9 billion in humanitarian help to Gaza.
Pro-Palestine demonstrations are taking place in major U.S. universities, including the Columbia University, the New York University, Yale, MIT University of California, and many more. Students are staging sit-in demonstrations, occupying buildings, and holding rallies. Over 100 students on Columbia's campus were recently arrested and charged with trespassing. Several students who took part in the demonstrations face suspension just weeks before the academic year ends. And for more on these demonstrations, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
Pro-Palestinian protests continued across U.S. universities with clashes between police, administrators, and students, resulting in arrests and removal of encampments. House Speaker Mike Johnson visited Columbia University here in New York, where over 100 protesters were arrested last week. He called for White House action, even suggesting the National Guard might be brought in. Tensions remain high at universities like USC, Brown, Yale, NYU, and Ohio State, with dozens arrested and students facing academic consequences. Republicans are now in the position of defending Jewish students' safety and criticizing the so-called academic left. Columbia's president now faces potential censure on her handling of these protests. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Meanwhile, weeks after Germany and many other European nations suspended funding to the UNRWA, the country says it now plans to resume payments to the humanitarian organization.
Now, UNRWA came under the scanner after Israel claimed that several volunteers of the aid agency were indeed linked to Hamas. So far, these allegations have not been proven, as Israel could not provide enough evidence to back those claims. The next report tells you more on this.
Germany plans to resume funding of the UN Palestinian agency UNRWA. That's according to a statement from the country's foreign and development ministries on Wednesday. Earlier this year, Israel accused hundreds of UNRWA staff of being military operatives in so-called terrorist groups in Gaza. A number of countries, including the US and Britain, then paused payments to UNRWA. A severe blow to the agency that provides education, health and aid to millions of Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon and Syria. But a new report released on Monday concluded that Israel had not provided enough evidence to back up its claims. The review was led by former French Minister Catherine Colonna, looking into UNRWA's ability to ensure neutrality.
Overall, the findings of the review are that UNRWA has in place a very significant number of mechanisms and procedures to ensure compliance with the humanitarian principle of neutrality.
A separate UN probe is also investigating Israel's accusation that 12 UNRWA staff took part in the Hamas-led October 7th attacks. Norway, which is a major donor to UNRWA, on Tuesday called on donors to resume funding, arguing that the donation cuts have put the population of Gaza at risk. 10 countries have resumed their donation following the review. The US, UK, Italy, the Netherlands, Austria and Lithuania have not yet done so. A UN spokesperson on Monday said UNRWA currently had only enough funding to pay for operations until June.
In a surprise move Ukraine and its allies think could help change the tide of the war, Washington has quote-unquote secretly shipped long-range missiles to Kiev for the use in its battle to ward off Russian offensive, and they have already been put to use. Ukraine struck a Russian airfield in Crimea that was about 165 kilometers from its front lines. Let's find out more about these secretly shipped long-range missiles that Ukraine is banking on and why Ukraine needs them or wants them. The Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS, is a long-range guided surface-to-surface missile system manufactured by Lockheed Martin. It has a maximum range of around 300 kilometers, and this is well beyond the capabilities of conventional artillery weapons. The 13-feet-long missile can be fired from the HIMARS or MLRS M270 platforms, two vehicles Ukraine has been using for years now. The missiles, which are also used by the US Marines, come in at least 5 different variants with distinct capabilities: the M39, the M39A1, the M48, the M57 and the M57E1. Some can even deliver hundreds of smaller bomblets like the cluster artillery shells given to Ukraine in 2023, while others are single warheads packing hundreds of pounds of explosive material. Now, the two cluster versions of ATACMS have a maximum range of 300 kilometers and can carry either 300 or 950 bomblets. The 3 single warhead variants have ranges up to 300 kilometers and are all guided with the assistance of GPS. Now, why did Ukraine want these missiles so desperately? Well, for one, ATACMS would allow Ukrainian forces to target all enemy positions in the Russian-occupied territories, including airfields, supply routes, storage sites and facilities in Crimea, which is essential and important to Russia. Now, the other advantage, of course, here that ATACMS would provide, other than its range, the fact that it is ground-launched. Ukraine's other long-range missiles have to be launched from a specially adapted aircraft, of which it has relatively few. So the development comes after the Biden administration debated for months whether to send the 300-kilometer range ATACMS missiles to Ukraine. 165-kilometer mid-range ATACMS was supplied last September over concerns that Ukraine would use them to attack targets deep inside Russia, which would, of course, extract another strong reaction from Russia, as we've already seen in the war so far. All right, back to you, Resha, for more.
Moving on, new evidence accessed by CNN has challenged the Pentagon's report about an attack during the hasty withdrawal by US forces from Kabul in August 2021. 13 US Marines and over 170 Afghans were reportedly killed. That is when the Islamic State Khorasan, or ISIS-K, carried out a suicide bombing attack outside the Hamid Karzai International Airport. The US forces suffered one of its worst casualties in over a decade on August 26th in 2021. For around 3 years, the United States military has been saying that loss of lives was only caused by the single explosion and the ball bearings it fired into the crowd. The airport was packed with US forces and desperate Afghans wanting to flee the country. Pentagon's finding says that only 3 gunfire shots were fired by the American and British forces, which did not hit anyone. 2 Pentagon investigations into the incident have affirmed these findings as well.
Any account of troops who reported coming under fire was said to be a result of confusion on Marines' part or effects of blast concussion. But new media reports now highlight over 11 rounds of gunshots were indeed fired after the attack for around 4 minutes. Anonymous accounts of soldiers and Afghan doctors present on the scene also aligned with these media reports. Some soldiers have even reported seeing what they thought was a militant gunman. These new evidences raise serious questions over the credibility of 2 US investigations.
The main shield wall!
Hundreds of thousands of people are out on the streets in Argentina in protest against the budget cuts in higher public education, which was announced by the new President Javier Milei.
Professors and parents are joining thousands of students in the capital and other major cities demanding free public university education. Labor unions, opposition parties and private colleges are also backing these demonstrations. Police say that at least 100,000 people turned out on Tuesday in the capital alone. while organizers put the number at closer to 500,000, paralyzing the city's center for hours.
It is important for all of us who live in democracy to defend the public university, and especially public education. So we say no to budget cuts. I think it is something that concerns us all, and it is important that we are here.
Far-right leader Millet won the elections last November. He vowed to take a chainsaw to public spending. After coming to power, his government has slashed subsidies on transport, fuel and energy. Since then, thousands of public servants have lost their jobs. His government is dismissing Tuesday's protests as political, while he justified the cuts by calling state-run universities centers of socialist indoctrination.
But the demonstrators argue that education should not be a target of such cuts. Universities rely heavily on government funding and budgets and are affecting research in key areas like healthcare.
Public education is a tool for social transformation. It's the opportunity for a person to be able to develop themselves, to be able to contribute to society, to be able to build their future, to really be a tool that can transform their reality and that of their environment.
Now, in a first, the city of Venice has launched a scheme to charge tourists for entering the historic Italian city.
Well, starting today, Shivin, the city's administration will charge day trippers for entry for the first time anywhere in the world. Day visitors will have to buy a pass costing €5 in order to enter and explore the tourism hotspot.
The aim is to find a new balance between tourism and the city of residents. What does this mean? This means that we must work to reduce the impact of daily tourism on certain days. On certain days of the year, there is too much daily tourism, and this creates stress on the city.
Venice is one of the world's top tourist destinations. In 2022, the city saw over 3.2 million visitors staying overnight. In contrast, the resident population of Venice is just 50,000. On an average, the city witnesses a footfall of tens of thousands of people who visit during the day to explore narrow streets and sightseeing. Consequently, the aim of introducing entry tickets is to persuade day trippers to come during quieter periods in the year as well and filter out the crowd.
It will take at least 2 to 3 years of experimentation, also done in a different way, improved year by year in order to see the practical results. The practical results must be that the city as now becomes livable.
At the beginning of this scheme, tickets will only be required on 29 busy days through the year, which is mostly on weekends from May to July. However, city administration and police are watching this scheme closely as tourist destinations worldwide are currently grappling with surging numbers of visitors. While a substantial tourist influx, it strengthens the local economy, it also risks damaging fragile ecosystems and historical sites. And well, it's now time for a quick short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side, we bring you more updates coming in from the US. President Biden's move to sign legislation targeting TikTok has intensified the debate over free speech and data security. TikTok CEO asserts the company's confidence in prevailing against these legal challenges. ByteDance is given a strict deadline to divest its US assets in the legislation approved overwhelmingly by the Senate.
Also on the other side of this short break, Taylor Swift's latest release, The Tortured Poets Department, has taken the music industry by storm. The pop star has delivered a captivating take on her romances and fights with the double album. Not surprisingly, Swift has also shattered some records in the process. This and much more right after this short break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching World DNA.
Togo's constitutional changes trigger popular protests after lawmakers approve reforms that may extend the 19-year rule of President Faure Gnassingbe. South Africa marks 30 years since its first post-apartheid election as the nation marks Freedom Day on April 27th, with polls to be held 2 days after the feat. And meet Pelumi Nubi, a Nigerian woman who completed a road trip from London to Lagos to promote a safe and borderless Africa. Watch World of Africa at these times, only on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching World DNA with me and Shivin. A lot more lined up on the show, but first, the headlines.
Israel's military is poised to evacuate Palestinian civilians from Rafah and assault Hamas holdouts, claimed IDF officials, despite international warnings of a humanitarian catastrophe.
Israeli forces are carrying out offensive action across southern Lebanon, says Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Israeli army claims striking 40 Hezbollah targets.
Tense protests over Israel-Hamas war rock U.S. university campuses. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson heckled calls on Columbia president to resign. Police and students clash at University of Texas at Austin as well.
Ukraine for the first time begins using long-range ballistic missiles provided secretly by the United States. Bombs a Russian military airfield in Crimea.
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval meets his Russian counterpart Nikolai Patrushev for a second time this month, reviews progress in bilateral cooperation and discusses important issues of mutual interest.
Spain's socialist prime minister cancels his public duties for the rest of the week, says he's mulling resigning after a court launched a probe into his wife for alleged influence peddling and corruption.
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has met his Russian counterpart Nikolai Patrushev on the sidelines of the BRICS NSA meet in Russia.
And this was the second meeting this month. The Indian embassy in Moscow said that the leaders reviewed progress in bilateral cooperation and also discussed important issues of mutual interest.
Now, on the sidelines of the 12th international meeting of high-ranking officials responsible for security matters in St. Petersburg, NSA, Ajit Doval had a bilateral meeting with His Excellency Mr. Nikolai Patrushev, Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. Now, the embassy posted on social media platform X. Both sides reviewed progress in bilateral cooperation and discussed important issues.
Meanwhile, Doval also spoke at the meeting of BRICS NSAs hosted by the Secretary of the Russian Federation Security Council. According to the Indian Embassy, Doval called for closer cooperation in the fight against terrorism and concrete actions to prevent trans-border planning, funding and execution of terrorist acts at the forum.
He also held a bilateral meeting with Celso Amorim, the Chief Advisor to the President of Brazil. With less than 2 months to go, political parties in South Africa have begun campaigning in full swing.
But this time, Shivin, the ruling party, African National Congress, is under heavy pressure to secure a majority. Well, corruption allegations, power cuts, struggling economy are just some of the reasons as to why people are fed up of the party that has been in power since its democracy in 1994.
The current ruling party is under heavy pressure and they are doing all they can to retain power as they campaign across the country, promising things will get better for the country. Now, these are images from KwaZulu-Natal province, where President Cyril Ramaphosa is leading the charge. The party is trying to woo voters. KwaZulu-Natal is perhaps the most difficult political arena, as this is the stronghold of former President Jacob Zuma. It is believed that the newly formed MK party, led by Zuma, might fracture ANC's voter base quite significantly here. However, current President Ramaphosa seems quite optimistic.
I've been very encouraged by the response of people here, and I get a good sense that in this area, in this precinct of KZN, the ANC is going to receive an overwhelming majority and is going to be brought back as the governing party in the province and also at the national level. So thank you very much.
On the world of business now, in a financial landscape where uncertainty often plays the wild card, Visa's latest earnings report dealt a winning hand, revealing insights into consumer sentiment that are nothing short of aces.
Well, the report showcased a resilient consumer base boldly swiping their cards for everything from globe-trotting adventures to fine dining escapades. Here's more. Take a look.
Visa's earnings report showcases a resilient consumer base splurging on globe-trotting adventures and fine dining extravaganzas. Amid economic chaos, Visa's customers declared their readiness to embrace life's luxuries. The company says consumers remained undeterred, continuing to splurge on big-ticket items and international travels. Visa's executives noted the robustness of consumer spending, particularly in bigger markets like the US and Europe. However, in a twist of fate, the Asian market appeared to be holding its cards closer to the chest, with a slower than anticipated recovery post-pandemic. As the summer season approaches, Visa anticipates continued growth, doubling down its revenue forecast for the year. With investors breathing a sigh of relief, the company's unwavering confidence in its projections proves that when it comes to financial forecasts, customers are feeling more optimistic about the economy in 2024. In a world where cash may only have been king, Visa's earnings report is a testament to the enduring reign of plastic. As consumers across the globe tap, swipe, and insert their way through transactions, one thing is clear: when it comes to spending habits, travel and dining are businesses with high demand despite temporary setbacks like the pandemic. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, US President Joe Biden's move to sign legislation targeting TikTok has intensified the debate over free speech and data security.
TikTok's CEO asserts that the company's confidence in prevailing against these legal challenges, and ByteDance is given a strict deadline to divest its US assets in the legislation approved overwhelmingly by the state. 170 million American users watch in anticipation as this legal battle unfolds.
Well, TikTok, in its reply, called the legislation unconstitutional. The company highlighted the 7 million businesses that could face economic threats with this decision. The reply also dismissed allegations around manipulation, citing no external pressure. Well, US becomes the latest in line of countries targeting TikTok. India, UK, Australia and France are some examples where TikTok has either faced a ban or specific restrictions. Well, the app, with over 1 billion monthly users, is facing regulatory scrutiny over alleged data breaches and potentially harmful impact on youth.
The European Union has recently raised its own concerns over TikTok's compliance with digital regulations. The clash over TikTok epitomizes the broader tech conflict between the United States and China. Legal experts suggest that the new legislation strengthens the Biden administration's legal footing. However, concerns regarding potential violations of free speech rights persist. The American Civil Liberties Union has warned against the ban, and TikTok users are expected to legally resist the move. All right, next up, let's take a look at all the developments from the world of technology, starting with British competition regulators who have announced they will investigate recent AI deals made by Microsoft and Amazon. The regulators are concerned that these deals might stifle competition in the AI industry. UK's competition regulators say they will examine Microsoft's partnership with France, Mistral AI, and the hiring of key staff from another startup, Inflection AI. Additionally, they are investigating Amazon's $4 billion investment in Anthropic, which is a San Francisco-based AI company. This move comes as big tech companies have been investing heavily in generative AI startups to strengthen their positions and shield themselves from competition in the market.
Well, in an announcement, X's CEO Linda Yaccarino has shared that social media platform is set to rival YouTube with its own TV app. Yaccarino unveiled the plans in a statement and outlined the platform's aim to provide users with a seamless experience from the small screen to the big screen. According to the CEO's tweet, the new XTV app promises to deliver high-quality video content directly to smart TVs for an immersive experience. Well, here, the user interface of the XTV app bears a striking resemblance to YouTube. This suggests that X is positioning itself as a direct competitor to the Google-owned platform. Highlighted features of the soon-to-be-launched app include trending video algorithm and AI-powered topics, among others. The launch date of the app is yet to be revealed.
In recent times, robots' verbal skills have progressed significantly, but their non-verbal communication, especially facial expressions, has trailed behind. However, this is changing with EMO, a smiling robot face engineered by Columbia University's Creative Machines Lab. EMO utilizes AI to mimic human smiles and other facial expressions, marking a significant advancement in human-robot interaction. Researchers believe EMO can enhance interactions between humans and robots by accurately anticipating and mimicking human facial expressions.
Now, the robot can predict a human smile 0.84 seconds before it happens.
The primary goal of EMO project is to develop a robotic face that can enhance interactions between human and robot. We are particularly focused on improving nonverbal communication skills, which are crucial for making those interactions more natural and engaging. EMO adjusts this by using its 26 motors, soft skin, and the camera-embedded eyes, so it can perform a responsive nonverbal communications and also like eye contact and the facial expressions.
The team aims to further improve EMO's capabilities by integrating verbal communication, enabling the robot to engage in more complex and natural conversations. Well, let's now take a look at stories that are making headlines in the world of sports, starting with Everton that have dealt a near-fatal blow to Liverpool's English Premier League title hopes. The Toffees won the Merseyside derby for the first time in Goodison Park since 2010. The Reds knew a victory over the rivals, whom they have dominated